The story of Joseph begins long before Joseph himself is born. It begins with the family line that God chose for his promises, the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob, the son of Isaac, had lived a life shaped by struggle, blessing, wandering, and the guiding hand of God. His family was large, complex, and filled with deep emotional history. Jacob had two wives, Leah and Rachel, and two more women, Bilhah and Zilpah, who bore his children. Among all of them, Rachel was the one he loved most dearly, the one he had worked 14 long years to marry. She had struggled to conceive for many years, watching Leah bear son after son. But eventually, in God's timing, Rachel gave birth to a son, Joseph. Before we continue, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would be truly grateful if you would consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you so much. Because Joseph was the long-awaited child of the wife Jacob cherished with all his heart, Joseph immediately held a special place in Jacob's affections. As Joseph grew, this affection only increased. Joseph had a gentle nature, a sincere heart, and a unique purity that set him apart from his brothers. Jacob watched him with pride, sensing something different about him, something significant. Joseph grew up among 11 brothers: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, who would be born later. Despite Joseph's innocence, the family atmosphere around him was complex. Many of his older brothers carried wounds of being unloved or overlooked by their father. The tension among them was often silent but always present. Joseph, unaware of how his father's favoritism affected them, continued to behave with sincerity, reporting faithfully to his father whenever he noticed misbehavior among the older brothers. Jacob openly favored Joseph. His love for Joseph was not hidden, it was visible to everyone. To express this love, Jacob crafted or commissioned a special garment for Joseph, a long, richly decorated robe, sometimes described as a coat of many colors. This robe was not just beautiful, it symbolized honor, distinction, and even leadership. It stirred envy in the hearts of Joseph's brothers. They watched him wear it and felt reminded every day that Joseph was the favored one, the one their father valued above them. Joseph's character was pure and honest, and he often dreamed at night. Dreams that came with spiritual meaning. One day he had a dream that he could not keep to himself. In the dream, he and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, Joseph's sheaf rose upright, while the sheaves of his brothers gathered around and bowed to it. When Joseph told them, hoping to share something meaningful, the brothers were furious. They interpreted the dream as Joseph claiming that he would rule over them someday. Their jealousy deepened into resentment. Later, Joseph had another dream. This one was even more significant. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. When he shared this dream, Jacob rebuked him gently, asking, "Shall I, your mother, and your brothers indeed bow to you?" Yet Jacob pondered the dream privately. The brothers, however, burned with anger. These dreams felt like threats to their pride and birthright. The tension between Joseph and his brothers reached a breaking point one day when Jacob, unaware of the danger, sent Joseph to check on the brothers who were grazing the flocks near Shechem. Joseph obeyed immediately, traveling alone across long stretches of land. When he arrived at Shechem, he discovered they had moved further to Dothan. Joseph continued his journey, committed to fulfilling the task his father had given him. As the brothers saw Joseph approaching from a distance, recognizable by the unique, colorful robe he wore, their resentment erupted into a dark plan. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams." Jealousy had clouded their minds, pushing them toward a decision that would change their family forever. Reuben, the eldest, tried to save Joseph. He persuaded the others not to kill him, but to throw him alive into a pit. Reuben planned to return later and rescue Joseph. When Joseph arrived, he greeted them with the same innocence he had always shown, but they seized him violently, stripping him of the cherished robe that had caused so much anger. Removing the robe was symbolic. They were removing the special affection he carried. They threw him into a deep, empty pit. Joseph cried for help, confused and terrified, but they ignored him. While they sat down to eat, a caravan of Ishmaelite and Midianite traders passed by on their way to Egypt. Seeing an opportunity, Judah suggested selling Joseph instead of leaving him in the pit. The brothers agreed. They pulled Joseph from the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph was taken away, powerless, tears streaming down his face as he disappeared into the distance. Reuben returned to rescue Joseph, only to find the pit empty. He tore his clothes in anguish. The brothers then killed a goat, dipped Joseph's robe in the blood, and brought it to Jacob. "Is this your son's robe?" they asked. Jacob recognized it instantly and believed a wild animal had devoured his beloved son. Overwhelmed with grief, he tore his garments, put on sackcloth, and mourned deeply. None of his children could comfort him. While Jacob wept, Joseph was carried down to Egypt and sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Though Joseph's world had fallen apart, God was still with him. Potiphar noticed Joseph's integrity, wisdom, and ability. Everything Joseph touched prospered, and Potiphar eventually placed Joseph in charge of his household, trusting him with everything he owned. Joseph worked with diligence and loyalty, but a new challenge arose. Potiphar's wife noticed Joseph's attractiveness and tried repeatedly to seduce him. Joseph refused every advance, declaring that he could not sin against God or betray Potiphar's trust. One day, she grabbed his garment and tried to force him to lie with her. Joseph fled instantly, leaving the garment in her hands. Angry and humiliated, she falsely accused Joseph of attempting to violate her. Potiphar, hearing her accusation, had Joseph thrown into prison. In prison, Joseph faced another season of suffering. But again God was with him. The prison warden trusted Joseph and put him in charge of the other prisoners. Joseph continued living with the integrity despite his circumstances. One day, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker were thrown into prison. Both had troubling dreams on the same night. When Joseph noticed their distress, he invited them to share their dreams, reminding them that interpretations come from God. The cupbearer's dream meant he would be restored to his position in 3 days. The baker's dream meant he would be executed. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him before Pharaoh. Everything happened exactly as Joseph interpreted, but the cupbearer forgot Joseph for 2 long years. After this time, Pharaoh had 2 disturbing dreams. In one, 7 fat cows were eaten by 7 thin cows. In the other, 7 healthy ears of grain were swallowed by 7 thin, scorched ears. None of Pharaoh's magicians or wise men could interpret the dreams. Finally, the cupbearer remembered Joseph and told Pharaoh about him. Joseph was brought from prison, cleaned, shaved, and presented to Pharaoh. When Pharaoh asked if he could interpret dreams, Joseph replied humbly, "It is not I. God will give Pharaoh an answer." Joseph explained that the 2 dreams meant the same thing. Egypt would have 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of severe famine. He then advised Pharaoh to appoint a wise man to oversee the storage of grain during the plentiful years. Pharaoh, recognizing Joseph's wisdom, appointed him as governor over all Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. Joseph received authority, a royal robe, a signet ring, and a chariot. He married Asenath and had 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. During the 7 years of abundance, Joseph stored immense quantities of grain. Then the famine began, affecting Egypt and surrounding lands, including Canaan. Jacob sent 10 of his sons to Egypt to buy grain. They bowed before Joseph, fulfilling the dream Joseph had seen as a boy. Yet they did not recognize him. Joseph recognized them instantly, but kept his identity hidden. He spoke harshly, testing their character to see if they had changed. He accused them of being spies. They insisted they were honest men and mentioned their youngest brother, Benjamin. Joseph demanded they bring Benjamin to Egypt. He kept Simeon as a hostage and sent the others home with grain, secretly returning their silver. When they discovered the silver, they were filled with fear. Jacob resisted sending Benjamin, but the famine intensified, forcing him to agree. Judah pledged to protect Benjamin with his life. They returned to Egypt with Benjamin. Upon seeing Benjamin, Joseph was deeply moved and secretly wept. He prepared a feast for them, showing hospitality but continuing his test. Joseph ordered his silver cup placed in Benjamin's sack. After they left, Joseph sent guards to confront them. When the cup was found, Joseph declared that Benjamin would remain in Egypt as his servant. The brothers were devastated. Judah stepped forward and offered himself in Benjamin's place, explaining that their father would die of grief if Benjamin did not return. This act of sacrifice proved their transformation. Joseph could no longer restrain his emotions. He sent all Egyptians out of the room and revealed his identity. "I am Joseph." The brothers were shocked and afraid, but Joseph reassured them, saying, "Do not be distressed. God sent me ahead of you to preserve life." Joseph invited them to bring Jacob and the entire family to Egypt, where he would provide for them. When Jacob learned Joseph was alive, his spirit revived. He traveled with his family to Egypt and settled in the land of Goshen. Jacob lived 17 years in Egypt before passing away. Joseph wept and honored him. After Jacob's death, the brothers feared Joseph would take revenge, but Joseph reassured them again, saying, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Joseph lived to see his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Before his death, he asked that his bones be carried back to the promised land. Joseph died at 110, remembered as a man of faith, purity, endurance, and destiny. Life lessons from Joseph's story. Number 1. God can turn suffering into purpose. Joseph's life shows that painful seasons are not wasted. What looked like betrayal, slavery, false accusation, and imprisonment became stepping stones to his destiny. Every hardship served a purpose that only became clear years later. When God is involved, suffering becomes a tool, not a dead end. What others intend for harm, God can reshape into blessings that reach far beyond us. Number 2, favor brings responsibility and trials. Joseph was favored by his father and later by God, but that favor attracted jealousy, opposition, and testing. Favor is not just privilege, it carries weight. Those chosen for great assignments must also endure great pressure. When God places favor on a person, he also equips them to handle the challenges that come with it. Number 3, jealousy destroys unity. Joseph's brothers allowed jealousy to grow until it damaged their family and their relationship. Jealousy blinds people to truth, distorts perception, and pushes individuals to actions they never imagined. It divides families, friendships, teams, and communities. The story teaches that jealousy must be confronted early before it grows into hatred. Number 4, integrity brings long-term honor. Joseph remained faithful to God and loyal to Potiphar even when temptation came repeatedly. His integrity cost him his freedom for a season, but it secured his future. Temporary losses are nothing compared to long-term honor. Doing what is right may seem costly, but ultimately it leads to respect, trust, and divine reward. Number 5, God is present in both hardship and prosperity. Whether Joseph was in the pit, in Potiphar's house, in prison, or in the palace, God was with him. God's presence is not dependent on circumstances. Even in environments where we feel forgotten, God is quietly arranging the next chapter. The story teaches us not to judge God's faithfulness based on our situation. Number 6, delays are not denials. Joseph spent years waiting in slavery, waiting in prison, waiting after the cupbearer forgot him. Yet none of those delays canceled God's plan. Divine timing often includes seasons of waiting because God is preparing both the person and the environment. A delay simply means God is aligning events for the perfect moment. Number 7, forgiveness heals generations. Joseph forgave the brothers who betrayed him. His forgiveness restored his family, protected them during famine, and created peace for generations to come. Holding on to bitterness keeps wounds open, but forgiveness brings emotional, spiritual, and generational healing. Joseph shows us that forgiveness is one of the most powerful gifts we can offer. Number 8, hard seasons prepare us for greater roles. Everything Joseph learned in hardship prepared him for leadership. He learned stewardship in Potiphar's house, endurance in prison, and wisdom through suffering. God uses difficult seasons as training grounds. Before God elevates someone publicly, he shapes them privately. Preparation always comes before promotion. Number 9, your destiny is stronger than people's plots. Joseph's brothers plotted to destroy his future. Potiphar's wife attempted to ruin his character, and the cupbearer forgot him. But none of these actions were strong enough to stop what God had planned. When God ordains a destiny, no human action can cancel it. People may delay, resist, or oppose you, but they cannot override God's purpose. Number 10, God aligns events over many years to fulfill his plan. Joseph's journey, from dreams to betrayal, from slavery to prison, from prison to palace, reveals God's long-term strategy. The events seemed disconnected at first, but they were all woven together to accomplish a greater purpose, saving nations from famine and preserving the family of Israel. God works behind the scenes, often over long seasons, arranging circumstances for outcomes we could never predict. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be truly grateful if you consider giving it a like, leaving a comment, sharing it with others, and subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for your wonderful support.